of lawlessness. That's another mystery in the Bible that was beginning to be explained to the early Christians, is what we're dealing with in the last days. So again, what is this mystery of lawlessness? It's a word we throw out, but it has a huge body of understanding around it that these prophets really got and handed down to us. But Jesus said again, in Matthew 23:13 and Luke 11:52, and this was the problem, that this encrypted knowledge was called the keys. This is a really interesting concept. In Matthew, he says that the experts in the law, he accused them of this. This is testimony of the Lord. He accused the scribes and the Pharisees, called them hypocrites. He accused them of taking away these keys of knowledge and hiding them. And he said, you close them up, you shut up, you lock away the knowledge of heaven, of the kingdom of heaven, which is the real revelation, and you don't let the people enter in. So this was a deliberate act. See, when I say we're in a propaganda war, where I say things get sabotaged sometimes, it doesn't always go according to plan. Well, I won't say it's always going, God is always in control. But this was a real problem, and so this is why by the time Jesus came to his own people, they really couldn't see him for who he was, because they were really, again, off in left field. They did not have, I'm going to have a little sip of water here that Ed, my producer, thank you, brought to me. So that's great. But I do want to read you something. This is interesting because this is Matthew Henry, is a great Bible expository preacher from the last century. He's got the Matthew Henry commentary. It's very popular. A lot of people buy it. And this is what he had to say about the keys, which I thought was interesting. I'd like to read to you. He said, and he's talking about the Pharisees and the scribes. He said they had not, according to the duty of their place or their job, these were the teachers, they had not faithfully expounded to the people those scriptures of the Old Testament which pointed at the Messiah, which if they had been led into the right understanding by the lawyers, they would readily have embraced him and his doctrine. But instead of that, they had perverted those texts and had cast a mist before the eyes of the people, corrupting, and by their corrupt glosses upon them, and then this is called taking away the key of knowledge. Instead of using that key for helping the people and helping them to use it aright and understand, they hid it from them. And this is called in Matthew, shutting up the kingdom of heaven against God. So, if that's true, and why should I doubt it? They were taken from us. And Jesus came back, and this is one of the things that he said he did. He still spoke to the people in parables, but he told his disciples, his close followers, he told them, he said, look, to them I'll speak in parables, but to you, I'm going to give back the keys. I'm going to give you the understandings, the hidden understandings. This is very important. This is called the key of David. Now, this is, and again, I say, as a key, you have to understand what a key represents. A key unlocks something that's locked up. A key is very powerful. I mean, if you don't have the key, you don't have access. But if you have the key, you can get in. So this is a great concept. This is what Jesus did. But I think we're back in the same, Houston, we have the same problem. Many of these keys have been taken from us. But, oh well, God is getting ready to restore these keys. But the question that comes down to is, how do we get the keys back? Okay, so Lord, help us here. It boils down to understanding the whole divine plan of redemption. And Jesus, like I said, I have no reason to ever underestimate our Lord or our God. But at this point, I want to take just a quick little jump into another little area. But, why do I care so much about this? It's kind of an interesting question I've asked myself. I've always been accused of having, like, way too much passion, whatever. But this is a little soapbox. Okay, so, but a lot of people today, they're getting into their personal history. This is a big deal. Genealogy 101 or whatever, you go to find out who's in your family tree, whatever. But so I've done a little bit of that. My family's done a little bit of that. But I feel some very interesting things in light of what I'm kind of understanding now. But I do want to recommend a DVD that has been put out by this gentleman, Kirk Cameron. He's in the Christian world, you might know he was in the whole Left Behind series of movies, and he's a great man of God. And he has done a DVD. It's called Monumental, and it is really a great work, and it was extremely eye-opening. So I do recommend seeing that. But some of the information in there was really interesting, and then when I listened to it and kind of was also doing so, I realized, oh my gosh, my personal family history through my dad comes right through these people that he's talking about. So I have a real personal stake in this resurfacing, I think, of this information. I think it's in my DNA, I swear. But Monumental is a story of the early pilgrims who founded this country. And he went back and did an amazing and massive amount of research because, again, we're in a propaganda war. And most people, they're rewriting our history. And I'll tell you what, they're rewriting my personal history. So yes, it's like, no, you're just not going to do it. My people, on my dad's side, I got my Irish side from my husband, which, oh my gosh, I love being Irish, whatever. But my mom is French, and that's all great. But my dad was English, and he came over. I knew we came over early. We came over right on what turns out like on the second boatload of the Pilgrims. And what Kirk goes into is the whole history of the Pilgrims, which really we don't get. I mean, I'm telling you what, they give us these little people, like he says, in swashbuckler belts and funny hats, and oh my gosh, these were men and women of God with unbelievable stamina and endurance and vision and purpose, and oh my gosh. No, you're not going to rewrite the history. So anyways, when I did study out some of this stuff, I realized that some of the geographics, the people groups, were where the first Maxon group, that's my maiden name, and my dad came over. And one of this, one of the women involved, Lydia Maxon, who was born in England, this is a direct relative in the line, was born in Somershire, England, in 1612, okay? She died in Westerly, Rhode Island, in 1718. She was 106 years old. She had 11 children. I'm sorry, that's some good genes or something. I mean, these are people back then. No refrigerators, no cars, no technology. I mean, it's just you and the elements in a new country. I don't know how you do that. I don't think I could have done it. But somehow she did it. Her lineage did. And the interesting thing, when I studied it more, okay, so she died in Westerly, Rhode Island. We kind of go back to Westerly. We go back to Plymouth, to Newport, to Westerly. Now, the interesting thing, and why I want to tell you, you have to pay attention, because this was a little life lesson to me. Okay, so her lineage, some of her boys went on in a lineage of about four sons over about 100 years, were elders, pastors, deacons of what are called the Seventh-day Baptists in Hopkinton, which is today in Hopkinton, Rhode Island. Okay, back then, I want to tell you a little secret. Where they were exactly was then Westerly, was then the capital and the city and the town of Westerly. It had about 150 layers. It moved downriver. So this is important. Geographic, just knowing. The only thing that's left, and I don't know if you can see that or zoom, doesn't matter, is this little monument that the Baptists put up on the side of a road in the middle of what is now complete suburbia. It has no old markings. They have moved the church building, but it would have been lost, 100% lost, if, those Baptists hadn't put up the marker and said what they said about this church and these people and what they did. And it says here that for more than a century, the religious, business, and civil center of Westerly was there in Hopkinton. Nearby in private homes, the people met in town meetings. They crossed paths, and there was the first mill dam and the grist mill. In a hill nearby was the first meeting house in southern Rhode Island, built by Seventh-day Baptists in 1680. The members of this church suffered imprisonment in defense of the colony's domain, met the onslaught of hostile natives, were foremost among those who established and developed the colony on the principles of freedom, furnished a governor, Samuel Ward, who was the leader in the struggle for independence, and joined in founding Brown University. So, and I want to just say one thing. What, theology, if you're a Seventh-day Baptist, what that means. Okay, today we're coming into a lot of understanding on the Hebraic roots of our faith because of all these Messianic Jews coming in. Back then, this is 400 years ago, to be able to search the scriptures and understand that our God does not change, that the seventh day, the Sabbath, is still, which is Saturday, is still the day that we were whatever, supposed to worship. Now, I'm not going to get into any of this, but the point is that they could understand that. These are people who knew their Bible. That was pretty much lost. That was gone. Somebody changed the times and the seasons, and I guarantee you it wasn't God. So for them to be able to ferret that out, that's pretty amazing, in my opinion. But the devil, one of his major tactics, divide and conquer, get us all into little groups disagreeing, arguing, it just, the Seventh-day Baptists, they didn't stay, it's not a strong thing, but its history is a little bit sad because they did have a lot of schisms. But, I just think we got to get to be this wise as serpents and harmless as doves level. But now I want to go back to and one little thing I want to do, I want to have people to understand quickly, when you're talking about books, because I want to get back to this, how the scrolls, because originally we have gone, the technology of this thing is important to understand. We have gone from scrolls, which were written on animal skins or papyrus, to codices, which is sort of like the beginning books, to books, the Gutenberg press and all of that, to the Kindle. So we're just moving along with the technology. But it is important when understanding biblical history is to understand scrolls. You have to understand what it is, how scrolls are made. This is when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, to me, you can trust this whole process. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I can't wait to do a whole session on them, it just the most amazing find or a gift of God back to us, to my opinion, bar none, one of the best. But they found an Isaiah scroll, or the book of Isaiah, and by and large, scholars all over the world have studied it, and basically they've all said this thing that was written, okay, let's say it's written 2,300 years, 2,300 years ago. It's almost exact. What we have today in our Bibles and what they had back then, by and large, except for some totally really minor little things, is exact. Now that's pretty good. So a Torah like we have some examples today that are hundreds of years old, that are copied. Many of our copies, and you understand, scrolls are only good for about 150 years. So you have to copy it. And this is the whole point of having a huge scribal priestly class. This is their job. They are entrusted by God. Being a scribe or a Levite, that was a big deal. And they were to meticulously hand copy these scrolls, which took about 2,000 person hours, or about 1 year writing 40 hours a week for one scroll, depending on its size and everything. So a Torah scroll is disqualified even if a single letter is added or deleted. The scribe, he must be a learned, pious Jew who has undergone special training and certification. All his materials must conform to strict specifications, and they can only use the ones that are purposely used for writing the Torah scrolls. He cannot write one letter from memory. He must have a second kosher open scroll before him at all times. The scribes must say every word out loud before copying the correct text. And every letter must have sufficient white space surrounding it. And if one letter touches another in any spot, can you imagine? It invalidates the entire scroll. Can you imagine working 6 months on something and, you just get, somebody goes by and they bump your hand and oh my gosh. The stress. You talk about a stressful job. Now, if that scroll has to be buried within 30 days. So this was not a fly-by-night business by any means, okay? So that being said, I have to tell you that I had a verse, I had a verse. I came across a verse in the Bible, and I'm telling you what, this one kind of changed my life, or my whole direction in this whole study, because I read it and I pondered it and I went, oh my gosh, how can that be? I never saw that. So this is a verse it's in Genesis 26, Genesis 26:5. To give you the context, the Lord appears to Isaac, and he says, do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land where I tell you to live, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. Isn't God good to us? For to you and your descendants, Isaac, I will give all the lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and will give them all these lands. And through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. And this is a plan that's been going on. And here we are, billions of people. I'm telling you, God did exactly what he said he was going to do. But this is what really got me. And he did this because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commands, my decrees, and my laws. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. And I'm like, wait a minute. Then I started thinking, no. Abraham, wait, he's 300 years before Moses. I thought all that came with Moses, the law and the precepts. And how did Abraham get all this stuff? The law, and I looked up every single word. These are all the exact same words. The law is the law, the precepts, the commands, that they're used all through the Torah. So we're not talking about a different set of laws or commandments or Torah, anything. We're talking about the same ones. And I'm like, wait a minute, where did he get them? Because as far as I understood, everyone, it all began with Moses, okay? Well, this is what is fascinating to me. When you really study it out, this is the testimony of the large part of Jewish writings. That this storyline, God says he made known the end from the beginning. Well, the beginning began with Adam. The testimony is he gave all this storyline to Adam. He told Adam, okay, Houston, we got a problem, but you know what? I'm going to get you out of it. It's going to take 6,000 years, and this is kind of the way it's going to go. Then it goes on to Enoch. Now, Enoch wrote, according to the testimony, 365 books. I mean, Enoch, if you study him out, it's unbelievable. That's why he's in there. He's a patriarch. Jude quotes Enoch and says he's the seventh from Adam, and Enoch was no second-rate prophet, okay? Enoch wrote the 365 books, and he was a pre-diluvian, meaning before the flood. So, in the book of Enoch, just to tell you what it says that it is a book of the beginning, and it is written specifically for, again, the last days generation. So just leave that as it. But then, like I said, this esoteric knowledge, this understanding of salvation, didn't start with Moses. It was given to Adam, passed through Noah, through Enoch to Noah, descended through Abraham. So that's where Abraham got it. You understand, this is a bloodline we're tracking. This is called the righteous line of patriarchs. these people are all coming from the same family group, and it's being passed down orally and really generation to generation. That's what the testimony is. So it goes to Abraham, then to Levi, and then Levi is one of the sons of Jacob, who becomes the priestly line. The height starts through Levi, and on down through his son Korath and his grandson Amram to Moses, and then to Aaron. From there it moves, presumably through Eleazar and Phinehas, the two sons of Aaron, to the entire priestly establishment which Moses established, taking their legitimacy in this way through their descent or their relationship to the early forefathers. So in other words, this is the priestly line. This has always been there. They got taken from us. This knowledge and understanding. And this is all, now, I want to say something here. This is the group, the priesthood, that kept this esoteric knowledge alive for all of us. And that was their job. But I'll tell you what, you can look at this thing two ways. You can look at it on the positive side or the negative side. And I'll tell you what, the enemy is all about divide and conquer, as I said. He has done a good job of splintering us into a million different groups. But the flip side is, if God is really in control, God is going to work this for his advantage. I'll tell you what, God is all about scatter and gather. That's God's way. Doesn't matter. He's in control of time. He says he did this with the seed of Israel, scattered them to the nations, and he's going to gather them back. No problem to God. He knows where every word in his treasuries, he knows where everything is. And like I said, the Dead Sea Scrolls came back right on time. There have been so many works that have been referenced by our early church fathers, by different people throughout, that we don't have, but have come back to us. So I'll tell you what, God is, there's a lot left to this story. So I look at, in a positive way, I'm all about the regathering of this information. Now, I want to just start with, and I just have a few minutes, so I got to do this quick, but this is where I wanted to end up, because if we're going to get oil in our lamp for this last day thing, we have to, in my mind, work with God to gather back this information that was once given to all of us, okay? There's different words. Okay, this is, I don't know if you can get this. This is my cheat sheet. Whenever I teach or want to really, in a nutshell, kind of get this information, what I'm talking about. In the world of Bible literature, there are what is called the canon, which is, just so you can see my little cheat sheet there, okay? I'm going to go through this. There is what we call the canon. Now, I'm all over the canon. I've read the canon for 33 years of my Christian walk, and I'm all over it. Okay, what the canon is the books that we all agree on. Okay? And traditionally they come out to around 66. The Old Testament and the New Testament. And I'll tell you what, if you never read beyond them, that's fine. That's fine. God is, I don't think he's going to hold it against you, but I do think you might not have all the information you need, because like I said, knowledge is power. The Jewish Bible, the way you use, has 24 books in it, okay? All right, how do I kind of explain this very quickly? Because I believe, this is my opinion, that God scattered these books. He allowed them to just kind of just go and get out there, and different groups have held on to different books. And see, not all canons are equal. But that was okay, because the Holy Spirit is in charge of things, and that was fine. Until now, we need to gather all these books back together and read them and discern them and be Berean about them and get the bigger picture here. So in the Protestant Bible, which is what I grew up with, what I use, technically, traditionally, I guess you'd say more I'm a Protestant, there's 66 books. In the Catholic Bible, you have a total 73 books. In the Eastern Orthodox, and these are all under the banner of the Christian Church, they have 78 books, okay? But topping the whole list is, I love this, the Ethiopian Coptic Christians have 81 books in their Bible, in their canon. I'm like, oh my gosh, who knew that? And they had, and I just have to interject this because I don't have a lot of time. There's other things. There's the Syriac Peshitta. The Syrian Christians have 27 books. The Greek Septuagint, which is another collection of works, has 39 books. You got the Dead Sea Scrolls. You got a great book today called the Book of Jasher, which is resurfaced. Then, I just want I don't mean to make your head spin. I think next week we'll come back and I'll try to go through a little bit more of this. But you have what is called, there are tons of text referred to in the Old Testament, I kid you not, that we don't have a single copy of still. Which was the Book of Jasher, which has been coming back, the Book of Nathan the Prophet, the Book of King David, the Book of Samuel. These are referenced in our Old Testament canon today as books that existed, but we don't have, technically. Maybe, So I'm just saying, this is a bigger thing than going on. But I just have to end with this, because one of my favorite books is the Book of Enoch, which I have been read. And I want to say, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, again, the three major works that they found in there, according to Numbers, if Numbers is anything to do with what these people were reading, there were 39 copies of the Psalms, 33 copies of Deuteronomy, and 25 copies of 1st Enoch. Now, Enoch is a book that I think is totally being restored to us. It's my opinion. But I'll tell you, we knew it existed. It was referenced by all the early church fathers. And it's my opinion, Jesus read the book. It was very much part of the literature, the apocryphal literature of the time. It disappeared from Western Christendom for 1,700 years. I'm telling you, this book, there were no copies. And it was getting to the point where scholars were thinking, well, maybe it was a fantasy book. Maybe it just really never existed, whatever. But this guy in the 1730s went to a country called Bithynia, which was Ethiopia, which is today Ethiopia, because he had heard that they had copies. This is a real Indiana Jones story, copies of Enoch. And he found in their canons copies of the Book of Enoch. And he brought them back to the West. They let him take one original and like 2 copies. They were very... and he brought them back to the West. And it took about 100 years through translations. R.H. Charles, a lot of people brought these back to us. So God is in restoring. It's a fascinating story. But here we are, back. And praise God, our Ethiopian brothers and sisters were led of the Lord, the Holy Spirit, to keep that book in their canon so that we could find it in these last days, so we could have that information. And if you want some homework, I say read the first 6 to 7 chapters of Enoch, get up to chapters, and I think it's 5, 6, and 7 for some really interesting information. So that's it. It's a wrap. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone is blessed of the Lord, and we have so much to be thankful for. I'm just so thankful to be able to do this show. God bless you.